Hello everyone, hope you all are doing good. My name is Mancha Hussain and these videos are brought to you by Mavio. So in this lecture we are going to study about anomaly detection, models plus TinyML and edge deployment. So this was also my first time reading about TinyML and it was not what I expected it to be honest. When I first saw the word, I thought it is just another platform for ML ops or cloud. And similarly, it was related to edge deployment. So it is pretty interesting. So let's just go on with our slide content. Before we detect anomalies, we must define normal. Okay, in a data set, there are normal values and then there are anomalies, something that is not normal. An anomaly is only meaningful relative to an expectation. Models don't learn bad, they learn unusual. You would also would have noticed in statistics when there are extreme values, for example, you have 5 students and most of the marks are in 20s and there's then one this brilliant guy who scored 90. So for that particular case, that is an anomaly. Okay, so there are three types of anomalies generally: point, contextual, and collective. Point anomaly, the one we discussed in context of medical, the heart rate of 240 beats per minute, easiest to detect statistically, most common anomaly type. Then we have contextual anomaly, something that is normal but not in current context. 35 degrees Celsius is fine at noon, but it is alarming post surgery at 3 a.m. Requires temporal spatial awareness, harder to catch with simple threshold, because you would see if something is normal in day to day life, but it is abnormal in some other context. So, this is what we call contextual anomaly. Collective anomaly, another great example: sepsis. The best example there is a person is in ICU and they normally have, obviously they are ill, that's why they are in ICU. And if one organ isn't working, one idol isn't working, okay, it is okay because this is expected, right? But if all five of them start deteriorating, that is now a problem. This is why sepsis is such an important factor in ICU. It requires multivariate reasoning. There are different variables contributing to it. Hardest class to detect. Stakes are different in healthcare. In e-commerce, a missed anomaly equals wrong recommendation. You accidentally recommended something wrong to the person who wasn't buying that, right? Completely okay. In health, the stakes are pretty high. It can cause life and death situations. In health data science, a missed anomaly is equal to missed sepsis event, eventually causing death, undetected arrhythmia, delayed ICU deterioration response. Key tension: sensitivity versus specificity. Catching everything, it is very sensitive, it is responding to each and everything, versus not a crying wolf, which is specificity. Alert fatigue is the real clinical risk. So, for this, we have use to score, CGM glucose alerts, ECG monitoring, pattern deviation from learned baseline waveform. We know that there is a specific waveform for ECG. Okay, there are specific waveline, but if something is apart from that, it means there is an anomaly. CGM glucose alerts, threshold anomaly detection on continuous glucose sensor streams. And then there's news to score, rule based anomaly detection in disguise, handcrafted vital thresholds. These are handcrafted anomaly detection system. Our models also do the same. They learn from the data. Like if there's a model made from decision tree, you can simply make a simple decision tree yourself since it's handcrafted. Whatever, it is just rule based. You add the rules and then you go down. Our model does this all the time. Statistic based anomaly detection. The core idea: assume data flows distribution of often Gaussian. An anomaly is a point that falls far from the mean. Like we said, if means of 5 students is like the 4 students are scoring in 20 range and another guy, the, the genius guy, is scoring 90, so that is considered as an anomaly. And how do we find it? We usually use z-score method. If it is far from 3 standard deviation, I don't recall exactly, but I think 3 standard deviation in a normal curve covers like 97, 98%, or maybe 99. So if something is going above from that, obviously is an anomaly. Grading on a curve: a student scoring 40 out of 100 is normal if everyone else scored 38 to 40. The same score is anomaly if the class average is 85. The score isn't weird, the context is everything. Okay. Works well when data is stationary, unimodal, low dimensional. When data has seasonality, multiple modes, and complex correlation. And this is why we don't normally use this in health data because health data is mostly temporal. Everything is time related in that. Learning what normal looks like. For unsupervised ML, meaning there are no labels yet, no labels needed. The model learns the structure of normal data and then flags what isn't right. Okay, it learns what normal is and then it says, okay, this isn't normal. Isolation forest, how it works. Anomalies are easier to isolate, needs fewer random tree splits to separate them from normal points. For example, a weird person is easier to narrow down because their unusual traits isolate them fast. You see, if a tree is going down like this, depending upon the choices they have made, it is easier to isolate them. Autoencoder, this works on a neural network level, compresses data into a bottleneck that reconstructs it. Anomalies reconstruct poorly, and this is why they have high reconstruction error because they cannot reconstruct properly. The model memorized healthy. If it can't reconstruct your signal, it has never seen anything like that. Then we have one class SVM, support vector machine, draws a tightly bound boundary norm around normal data in feature space. Anything outside that boundary is flagged. It means I have these two groups, okay, and then I have a straight boundary in them. It can be like this as well, but we are taking straight for example. Anything on the left side is abnormal, everything on the right side is normal. So it's simply classifying it what is normal and what is not. The nightclub bouncer who only knows the regulars, anyone unfamiliar is denied entry. Okay, anomalies in time when order matters. Temporal methods. Health data is almost always temporal. Vital, lab trend, ECG waveform, order matters. Okay, and this is why we have time-based things. LSTM, the model that was very famous before transformers came in. We have profit plus residuals. What is profit? It is used for monitoring and time, monitoring time data. And then for metrics profile, we have Stumpy. LSTM autoencoder learns temporal patterns end to end, flags sequences with high reconstruction error. Now this is related to neural network, and this is why we are using autoencoder over here. Okay, fits a trend plus seasonality model, then flags large residuals. Great for scheduled physiological rhythms. Metric profiles finds motifs and discords in raw time series with no training required. It is fast and interpretable. Now, the main problem with temporal data can be is a person might be degrading over time, right? Really slow, and it would go constantly like this. It wouldn't be a spike. So understanding that catching that spike is way easier than something going down like this. Patient slowly deteriorating looks like a gradual trend, not a spike. Time series model catch the trajectory, just not the snapshot. The frog in slowly eating water, no signal reading looks alarming until it's too late. Okay, measuring anomaly detection performance. Now, obviously, there are evaluation metrics that we use in our ML: precision, recall, F1 score, AUROC. Precision of all flag events, how many were real, how many were caught, the harmonic mean of precision and recall, overall discriminative ability. This is for supervised when there are labels, then when there are categories. If there are no labels, how do we measure anomaly detection performance? Contamination rate, point adjust metric, visual inspection plus domain expert review. So the thing is that with labels it is a bit easier because we have predetermined and almost anyone can understand those. Unsupervised on the other hand is a little bit difficult. A real clinical metric: how many hours early did we flag the event? Now, in case of sepsis, this is actually very important. A model that catches 95% of sepsis cases but fires 50 false alarms per day will be ignored by nurses within a week. Obviously, everybody would literally think that, okay, this might be a false alarm, it might be a false alarm, because for every single patient, these 50 alarms would be difficult, even for the nurses, to look at them. PR curve plus ROC curves in an imbalanced health data, rare anomalies. So, to be honest, balanced health data is very unnatural. Why? Because of out of all so many patients, you would have only a few with cancer or other diseases, and that would make your data imbalanced because, for example, out of 100, only 3 people have cancer. So you cannot use that as data for your ML model because it wouldn't give trusted results. So this is what it talks about. AUROC can be misleading. Precision recall AUC is more honest metric. Always show both. So this was a tip for you. The case on device inference. Okay, so now here's the edge computing part. What is TinyML? Is basically machine learning optimized for tiny machines. Okay, for example, tiny machine, a thermometer, but you cannot call it ML. But what if there was a thermometer that you know would also predict in 1 to 2 hours or 15 to 10 minutes what would be the temperature of this person? That is a machine learning model, right? Now this is called TinyML. For that particular tiny device that does not have so much computation power in it, it is optimized for that. Like, I saw a post that somebody was playing Doom the game on a pregnancy test. So that is optimized, that game was optimized for that pregnancy test. So this is what it means for TinyML. And how does edge computing come into place? Is that obviously you do not use cloud for those things, right? Why? Because the problems are here: latency, connectivity, privacy, and cost. If somebody is dying right now and we have to wait a second, my response is coming 2 seconds, just live 2 seconds longer, that isn't possible. So we optimize that model and it lives on that device only. Connectivity, what if the internet goes away, right? Privacy, HIPAA concerns we have, it has to stay on the device, keeping the local data. But that is also considered by cloud. So this is like case to case different. Cost, continuous EGC streaming to a cloud API is expensive as scale across thousands of patients. Cloud inference is calling a doctor in another city to ask if you should wear a coat. Edge is weather app on your phone. This is why software as a medical device usually has these inbuilt. TinyML, machine learning on microcontrollers. Hardware constraints, the RAM is minimum, flash 1 MB to 2 MB for model plus code, no OS, no floating point unit, battery powered, power budget range, and target, and typical targets are these. So the TinyML stack, you train the model, you convert, you quantize it. Now quantization is a big part of these things. Quantization is, look, there's a tip as well. Float 32 stores 3.1415, int 8 stores 3. Now you lost some precision in that, but you gain a 4 times smaller model. This is what quantization means. You reduce the size of the model, and what does it cost? It costs you a little bit of the precision that you had before. You quantize it and then you deploy a C++ runtime, because C++, C, and these languages are optimized for these things. This is why you see internet on your washing machine, even on your solar panels. So those are not powered by Python. Python itself takes a huge amount. Training is writing a detailed recipe book. TinyML is laminating the one recipe card that fits in your pocket. Same dish, much smaller footprint. So challenges: model drift, threshold tuning, explainability, federated learning, FDA, and regulation. Patient physiology changes. The normal learned by the model may come stale without retraining. Threshold tuning: too sensitive is equal to alert fatigue, too conservative missed events. There is no free lunch. Explainability: clinical staff needs to know why the model flagged something, so the black boxes are not a coping mechanism here. Federated learning: train models across hospitals without sharing raw patient data. The privacy preserving frontier for clinical AI and the bridge to your SageMaker FL module. FDA and regulation, the SMD part: software that detects disease or deterioration is SAMD. Class 2 or 3, depending on risk level. Evaluation is an academic, it is a legal requirement. The goal isn't that the model knows what's wrong, It's a model that knows when something is worth humans' attention in the right place at the right time. So this is what it takes to have a software as a medical device. These are everything that we have to keep in mind while constructing software and algorithm for these tiny devices. So this was all for this lecture. Thank you so much.